Storming the Floor, How Hawaiian Women Regained the Right to Vote. A'ole e moe ku'u maka ko ku'u make make. My eyes won't sleep until my wish is accomplished. For Native Hawaiian women living in the 1890s, this quote represents a very real and motivating idea. Throughout the growth and evolution of the Hawaiian archipelago, U.S. influence has shaped the culture of the Hawaiian people in many ways. As a result of the U.S. occupation of Hawaii, women throughout many decades were forced to fight to regain the right to vote due to the prejudices of the colonial government, which limited their freedom until the mainland U.S. legalized suffrage for all women. Their perseverance not only contributed to this eventual passage of voting rights, but also laid the groundwork for future generations to continue the fight for equality and representation, both in Hawaii and the rest of the world. Before significant U.S. involvement, Hawaiian society was relatively matriarchal, especially through the inheritance of titles and ranks. Politically, women participated as high-ranking chieftesses, known as ali'i, who served as governors. Battle at Nu'uanupali by Herb Kane depicts women as generals and warriors, which can be supported by the many records of female warriors in Hawaii. While men were typically responsible for cooking and farming, the women produced artwork out of lauhala leaves and feathers. These pieces were treated as trading items, tax payments, and inheritance, and gave Hawaiian women larger roles in the economics of society. Women were not expected to be the sole providers of children, and the kupuna, which included elders and grandparents, would take care of children. There were no restrictions on voting for women, as the 1840 Constitution granted suffrage to the maka'ainana, a gender-neutral Hawaiian term referring to the entire population. The introduction of Christianity in 1820 to the islands marked a turning point as missionaries sought to convert the indigenous population and introduced patriarchal ideas that threatened the existing culture of Hawaii. Hawaiian noblewomen changed their fashion styles to more reflect the English corset and began to curl their hair in the latest American fashion. Not only did styles change, but the religious aspect of Hawaiian life began to exclude women from holding roles as priests or to honor anything passed down matriarchally. This led to a decline in the spiritual and political roles of women in Hawaiian society. In addition to changing social life in Hawaii, missionary descendants as well as U.S. businessmen known as the Hawaiian League supported a new constitution, referred to as the Bayonet Constitution. Signed into law in 1887 under a threat of violence, this law revoked voting rights for Native Hawaiians. By limiting the number of natives voting, these men were increasing their political power throughout the islands, regardless of whether or not their beliefs were shared by the people. Their main agenda included officially annexing the Hawaiian Islands to the United States due to the economic and political advantages, including large sugar plantations. The Constitution transferred a majority of power to the League and created strict laws detailing who could vote or run for office. It stated that no person shall be eligible as a representative of the people unless he be a male subject of the kingdom. Women had previously held significant roles as monarchs, landowners, governors, ambassadors, members of the House of Nobles, and kahuna. Therefore, the creation of the Bayonet Constitution was entirely unjust in its exclusion of women from the politics of Hawaii. In 1891, following this dramatic change in the political climate of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani took the throne, becoming the last reigning monarch. Liliuokalani was an advocate for the rights of Native Hawaiians and attempted to restore power to the people despite the rising influence of the U.S. 2 years later, a coup, orchestrated by American and European businessmen, overthrew the monarchy. Calling themselves the Committee of Safety, these men opposed the new constitution the Queen was drafting that would give voting rights back to women and marginalized groups. The newly created Republic of Hawaii was annexed to the United States in 1898. With the introduction of this new territory, mainland suffragists turned their attention to the Pacific Islands, eager to influence the fight for women's voting rights. Written by prominent figures like Susan B. Anthony, the Hawaiian Appeal of 1899 called upon Congress to extend voting rights to Hawaiian women, upon whatever conditions and qualifications the right of suffrage is granted to Hawaiian men, on the basis that the progress of civilization in every country is measured by the approach of women toward the ideal of equal rights with men. Now that Hawaii was officially part of the United States, Hawaiian women also began campaigning for their vote. In 1912, Wilhelmina Kikilau Kalani Nui Weidman Dowsett founded the National Women's Equal Suffrage Association of Hawaii, the first Hawaiian suffrage organization. She believed that the fight for voting rights should be led by Hawaiian women, rather than suffragists from the mainland U.S., who might not truly represent the opinions and goals of natives. Wisaw's goal was to directly petition the Hawaiian Territory government for an amendment to the Constitution. The organization became an official affiliate of the National American Women's Suffrage Association a year after its creation and began making national impacts. Dowsett, during a public meeting in the Hall of Representatives of Hawaii, is quoted saying, "I can speak for my Hawaiian sisters, and I can say that in every way the woman is man's superior. She will not only cast her vote fully and intelligently, she will vote honestly." The Hawaiian Senate passed Dowsett's bill to extend voting rights, but the House stalled the decision. Dowsett led over 500 women of all ages, nationalities, and backgrounds to storm the House floor, carrying signs demanding votes for women, and delaying the day's proceedings entirely. Eventually, the House was forced to schedule a hearing for the next day over the issue of women's suffrage. Despite the hearing, a month later the House had not budged, and Wisaw began to question whether voting rights would ever be extended to Hawaiian women. Their demonstrations and bills, although ultimately unsuccessful in swaying the legislature, highlight the determination and activism of Hawaiian suffragists. The passage of the 19th Amendment in August of 1920 was met with celebration in Hawaii and around the country. As each state ratified the amendment, the National Women's Party stowed a new star onto their ratification banner, which was eventually displayed on the balcony of their headquarters in Washington, D.C. Hawaii was not yet a state, so their vote did not count in the ratification, but Hawaiian women stitched their own star and sent it to the headquarters saying, "Women of Hawaii, who are granted the privilege of suffrage equally with their sisters of the continental United States, send this Star of Hawaii to the flag of suffrage, in the hope that it may be permitted to shine among the stars of the states." On August 30th, 1920, the first women's voter registration drive took place in Hawaii, and Johanna Papakaniao Wilcox became the first woman to register to vote. While the 19th Amendment granted Hawaiian women the right to vote, it is important to remember that as a U.S. territory, Hawaii had limited political representation until their statehood in 1959. No Hawaiians were able to vote in the U.S. presidential elections, regardless of gender, but they did win the ability to vote in territorial elections. A letter to the editor of a Hawaiian newspaper on August 24th of 1920 under the title, "A Chance to Get Even," reads, "When the women of Kauai get the vote and come to the polls for the next election, they will doubtless recall how relentlessly some of the members of the last legislature fought the women's suffrage bill. Some of these same men are now in the field looking for votes. Now is the time to remember them." The women of Hawaii used their newly acquired vote to fight for their beliefs and change the political environment of the islands from one of exclusion and sexism to one allowing everyone to feel represented and supported by the government. It took 5 years, as well as the addition of a new amendment, to allow women to be elected to any government office in Hawaii. Rosa Lee Enos Lyons Kili'ioni became the first since the Bayonet Constitution was created after her election in 1925 to the 6th District of the Territorial House of the Hawaiian Legislature. Kili'ioni was not the only woman to be elected. Due to the efforts of both Wisaw, the National Women's Party, and the National Women's Suffrage Association, since 1975, Hawaii has elected 992 women to the state legislature. And this year, women account for 40% of their elected officials. 50% of their 4 seats in the U.S. Congress are women, and Nadine Nakamura currently holds the role of Hawaiian House Speaker. These advances in the representation of Hawaiian women would not have been possible without the perseverance of women from 1887 and beyond, standing up for their rights and the rights of future generations. Whereas previously, young women grew up questioning whether they would ever get a say in the way their territory, city, state, or country was run, now Hawaiian women are able to pursue their goals of becoming politicians and leaders. The votes of the women of Hawaii have an incredible impact on the government, changing lives across the state and leading to a more inclusive and well-represented country.